Yo, what's going on, guys? So Rodrigo Bentancur is officially signed for Tottenham Hotspur for a fee reported to be worth 15 million quid plus add-ons. And honestly, in this current climate, that is an excellent bit of business. Yes, it's not the most exciting signing in the history of the game, but you only have to look as far back as Lo Celso and Ndombele. You know, when those two arrived at Tottenham, your supporters were doing fucking handstands in their living rooms. Yet, as good as they appeared on paper, they completely flattered to deceive in reality. I believe this lad's gonna have the equal but opposite impact on the team. Now, a bit about him as a player for those of you who haven't really had a chance to watch him. He's dynamic, hardworking, and tactically extremely versatile, which is great for a midfielder. He's comfortable on either foot, tall and physically strong, so the Premiership's going to be a great fit for him. In fact, I actually see a lot of parallels between him and his new coach Antonio Conte as players. Aside from the fact that they both represented Juventus, they're combative, energetic, and can play pretty much anywhere they're asked to, whether that's as a central midfielder trying to dictate the tempo of play, box to box, pushing up and running back, or sitting just in front of the back four to protect the defense. Neither of them were the most naturally talented, skillful, or gifted footballers from a technical standpoint, but as far as stamina, vision, and intelligence is concerned, they very much stand out from the rest. There are, however, certain differences that do exist. The big difference is in mentality. Conte, you see how expressive he is on the touchline, the fact that he's a leader. Bentancur still very much can become one, but at this moment in time, it is night and day. Conte also had an eye for goal. Don't be fooled by this lad's goal against Venezuela a couple of days ago in the opening minute. It's his first ever for his country. He hasn't scored at club level since 2019, but not to worry. That's not his job. He is out there to do the dirty work, which he very much will do. One real big positive is that Conte, who was extremely injury prone, is nothing like Bentancur in that regard. This lad is made of titanium. You never really hear that, oh, he's got a knock, he's going to be missing the game. He is always fit, and as they say, availability is very much the best ability. Especially for someone like Conte, he places a premium on defensive stability being the platform for attacks, and this explains why he typically starts Højbjerg and Skip in the same 11 so consistently. If one of them or any other midfielders to pick up a knock, at least there's a lot more depth now to make up for it. He's going to provide the attitude and intensity that Conte was begging for from the likes of Ndombele and Dele Alli in absolute abundance. Another great thing about him is that he's played in pressure cooker situations throughout his career, which has built up a lot of character. Representing Boca Juniors as a teenager in the Copa Libertadores is not an easy ask whatsoever. Juventus, 3 Serie A titles back-to-back, playing Champions League football week in, week out, knockout games. 4 Uruguay's played in the World Cup as well as the Copa America. And after all this, he's still only 24 years old. For reference sakes, that's 2 years younger than Harry Winks and the same age as Joe Rodon, who don't have even a quarter of much experience as this guy does. You'd be wondering, okay, if he's so good, why did Juventus decide to get rid? Allegri is actually a big admirer of Bentancur. Saw him as a more reliable option than Arthur and more durable than Ramsey. He didn't want to lose him this window, but at the end of the day, Juventus needed to raise funds to complete the signing of Vlahovic, which is why him and Kulusevski were sold to Tottenham. Bentancur also gets a lot of grief from Juventus supporters because they complain that he can't dictate the tempo of play as well as a player in the mold of an Andrea Pirlo or Miljan Pjanic, but these are two of the greatest that we've seen in these last 15 to 20 years. You can't really expect him to do something that he's not good at. It's very much like Man United supporters with Fred. You see him for Brazil when he's got Casemiro, Fabinho sitting behind him. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. Yet here, when he's expected to play as a number 6 in the Premier League, he often flatters to deceive, and you can't read too much into it unless he's played in the position that he's actually made for. Conte is extremely astute tactically, so he's going to use him well. This is the same man who made Victor Moses look like a footballer, for fuck's sake. That's like turning water into fucking wine. If you go on Juventus forums, it's largely negative, but that tends to happen when your team's fallen off a cliff and lacks creativity. Everyone needs a scapegoat, and it is him at this moment in time. If you go forward and see how their season pans out, even though Vlahovic has come and they're likely to score a lot more goals, they're still going to have the same issues until there is a big revamp from top to bottom, and they're going to realize that now that he's gone. A lot of his criticism and hatred also comes from the fact that he made a huge mistake versus Porto in the Champions League knockout game that they were expected to win with ease. That is always going to rub supporters up the wrong way. Not to mention Juventus' midfield over this past decade has included names like Arturo Vidal, Pirlo, Pogba, Marquisio. This is like the creme de la creme of football. You can't really blame them for being angry about it, but it's more of a collective issue than an individual one. Not just Bentancur, but when you have the likes of Arthur, Winston McKennie, Aaron Ramsey, Adrian Rabiot, it's never going to be the same level. They are in transition, and that is something that they're going to have to accept rather than trying to look for someone to blame. He actually started off at Juventus very well. If you go back to the 2019-20 season, their fans were singing a very different tune at the time. Think Lucas Torreira at Arsenal, came out like a house on fire, then plateaued slightly. He's actually been very good this season though, especially these last few games. So that is extremely promising for Spurs supporters. One thing, however, that must be noted is that he is not going to be a creative outlet. Let's make that very clear. He doesn't have the vision or passing range to be an attacking midfielder. That will have to wait until the summer, and should he not be able to provide it, the blame should very much go to the board rather than anyone else, because they've gotten rid of anyone who might be capable of doing that. But I think that's largely to do with the fact that Conte wants to play in a certain way. Now, as far as how he's going to fit in at Spurs, I believe that Conte really wants to push up those wing backs while still protecting that fragile defense with a double pivot. Conversely, if Reguilon and Royal decide to sit back, then Højbjerg and this lad can push up top. So it's going to bring a lot of variety into the team, which will keep the opposition manager guessing. You can attack teams from all corners. Yes, it doesn't quite have that player who can make the eye of the needle pass, and it might be a bit of an issue getting that transition from midfield to attack. But one thing's for sure, you're going to be extremely solid defensively and a handful on the counter attack. So all in all, it might not appear particularly glamorous, but it might be exactly what Tottenham need to nick that 4th place, because should that happen and you get Champions League football with the additional funds that Conte is going to have, he can build a real team here. A title challenge within 2 or 3 seasons isn't out of the question whatsoever. We've seen how quickly he's transformed sides in the past, and that is on the cards as things stand. Please let me know what you guys think. I'm happy to make any sort of videos you want as long as it's related to European football. That would be the Premiership, Championship, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, Ligue 1, the Dutch League, Portuguese League, Russian League. I'm good with anything. Just let me know. Take care. All the best.